Well, good evening, and welcome to Gigi's Ghastly Ghosts. Tonight, I want to talk about pregnancy. Sometimes when we're pregnant, the doorways seem to open up and strange things seem to happen. I've got a couple of stories for you. I have had 3 children, and when I was pregnant for my first one, it was a little girl. I want to talk about all the strange goings on during pregnancy. When I was pregnant with my daughter, we lived in a house across the street from a bowling alley, and this was in Plainwell, Michigan. Strange things would happen in the house, things would move around. We had a cat, and when I was pregnant, she constantly stayed right by my side, and she'd hug my stomach, and it was like she was standing guard at all times. One night, I woke up in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden my mom was in bed with me. I turned around and looked at her and I said, "Mom," and she said, "Just go to sleep." So in the morning, I woke up and I said, "Mom, why are you in my bed?" And she said she was in her bed and she woke up and she saw a man floating above her bed looking at her. It scared her so much she jumped out of bed and came in my room and got in bed with me. So she wouldn't go back in her room that night. She eventually did, but it really scared her. And at that point, I noticed strange things going on. You would hear bumps in the house, you would hear footsteps, the lights would flicker, but that's about all that had happened to this point. Then I started having nightmares while living in that house. I am not a nightmare person. I have reoccurring dreams, but I don't really have a lot of nightmares. When I was living in that house, I had a lot of nightmares. We didn't live there for long. After I had my daughter and we were at home, I got really sick right after I had her, and so my mom had to take care of her for the first couple weeks of her life because I was so sick and I couldn't even get out of bed. I had some complications during pregnancy. And then when I did start getting better and my friends started coming around, and my sister had friends that would come around, and one night my mom had my daughter and she was out somewhere, I don't remember where, and we had some friends over, myself and my friend Dana, my sister, and her friend Amy. Amy and Amy. Anyway, we were in the house hanging out all night, and we were sitting around the table talking, and we were talking about all the strange goings on in the house and how funny things were and the strange energy. And then my sister pipes up and says, "Hey, I ran into a friend of ours, and he said that this was his grandpa's house, and he said his grandpa died here." And we all looked at each other and thought, wow, that's crazy, you know, because Mom saw that guy floating above her. And then, jokingly, I say, "Well, if you're here, let us know," you know, joking around, being young. And anyway, the light right above us at the table started flickering, the little chandelier. And so I got a little freaked out. I jumped up and I went into the hallway. The hallway light started flickering, so I ran into the bathroom. The bathroom light started flickering, so I ran out of the bathroom into the bedroom. The bedroom light started flickering. By this time, we all ran out of the house screaming. It was kind of freaky. So that happened, and that was right after my daughter was born. So that house it wasn't scary, but there was, you know, definitely something going on there. And then when I got pregnant the second time, we had gotten married. We were living in an apartment, and this is in another town close to Plainwell, but this town is called Martin. And we were living in Martin, Michigan, awaiting the birth of our son. And during that pregnancy was really, there was a lot of things that happened. These were newer, we were living in a newer apartment complex. So I don't know anything about the land. I know nothing. What I do know is that my husband at the time, my ex-husband, had a brother that had passed away in a car accident. It was a really traumatic car accident, not expected, and obviously most car accidents aren't, but it was a very traumatic death, and his family took it very hard, and he was close to that brother. So when I was pregnant with our son, strange things would happen. I was having strange dreams. I was having nightmares. I think I once astro traveled by accident. I didn't know what it was at the time. I'm guessing it was astro travel. But I was in bed sleeping because I was pregnant. This must have been, I don't know, 7, 8 months pregnant. I was getting up there. My husband had his younger brother staying the weekend with us, and they were in the living room playing PlayStation or, video games. I have no idea what they were playing. They were playing video games. I was sleeping, and I thought it was a dream, but I woke up in the dream, I guess. I floated out into the living room. I was stuck to the ceiling, and I was looking down on the two of them playing their games and listening to their conversation. And it was weird because it seemed very breezy and loud. It was like a loud, staticky wind tunnel. It sounded loud. His deceased brother was there, and he was standing next to them, and he was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't understand what he was saying due to the wind. It seemed to be so windy with things flying through the air, and I'm not really sure what the things were flying through the air. I don't know why it seemed so windy, but it did. And the two of them playing whatever they were playing and sitting in the middle of the floor, I all of a sudden, I just remember waking up, and when I woke up, I remember gasping for air and panicking, and I went running into the living room to find the two of them sitting in the exact same spot playing the exact same game I just saw. It was so weird, and I was so freaked out by this dream, I never forgot it, and the feeling that I got that it wasn't a dream. The only time I ever got that feeling that I was not in a dream, if this wasn't right, I was somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. So I think I had astral traveled. It's the one and only time, but I think that's what happened. I can't explain it. But the rest of the night I couldn't sleep. It caused severe anxiety. I was hyperventilating. It was so scary. So that happened during that pregnancy. As the pregnancy rolled on, more things started happening. I started seeing this short thing in the house. I don't know what it was, but it started when I was about 8 months pregnant. I was in the bathtub taking a bath. My daughter was about 2 at the time. She was in bed sleeping. And when I was taking a bath, our bathtub kind of faced the door. So when I'm laying in the bathtub, I can clearly see the door handle. And I saw the door handle turn, but the door didn't open. So I thought it was my daughter. So I thought she needed me. I jumped out of the bathtub, grabbed a towel, opened up the door within seconds. And I see a short being walk down the hallway and just duck behind the wall. And so I ran down there thinking it was her. And I turned where this little person went. I turned, and that would be where the living room is, and she wasn't there. There's nobody in the living room. I went back to her bedroom, and she was asleep. This was a small apartment. It's not like a short person could have escaped. I mean, this would have been child size, like the size of a 2-year-old. That's the first time that I ever saw it. I continued to see this thing. I had a really bad miscarriage in the middle of the 90s, and I saw this creature until then. So wow, so it was a few years. So I saw this creature for probably 6 years. 6 whole years I would catch glimpses of this creature, this small short thing, and it would always just be getting out of my eyesight. Even after we moved, I would see it duck down and be gone. And it always whispered my name. I haven't heard my name whispered in a long time, but that used to whisper my name. And it would sound like my husband. It would be his voice. It was so weird. But back to the story about the pregnancy. So I continued to see that thing through my pregnancy with it whispering my name in my husband's voice. And my husband wouldn't be home most of the time that I would see it. And then the noises in my daughter's room started. And my daughter started coming out. She loved to be in her room. That's where all her toys were. Then all of a sudden, her toys would make noise, and she didn't want to be in there anymore. And here she is, 2.5 years old, and I say, what's the matter? What's going on? And she would say, I don't want to be in there. She says, there's a big man in there, and he he wants me to tell Dad something. And I said, well, what does he want you to tell him? And she said, the big man wants me to give Dad this. And it was a penny. And she handed it to me, and I go, oh, thanks, that's nice, And I said, I'll give it to Dad. So I put it on the counter. And then she reaches up there, grabs that penny, and she looks at me and she says, no, the big man wants Dad to have this. And she puts it in my hand one more time, and I said, okay, I'll tell Dad when he gets home. Well, my husband got home, and I told her the happening and gave him the penny. He's looking at the penny and realizes on the penny is marked the year of his brother's death, the car accident. That's when the penny was made. That's the year that was on it. So that was probably the significance of the penny. That's the only thing we could figure out. And she kept talking about this big man with boots. And he said that his brother always wore boots. He always wore those hiking boots back in the 70s and 80s. You had those lace-up hiking boots everybody wore. Those are what he would always wear. And she called him the big man, and she said that his teeth did this, and she kept waving her hands outward as to seem that his teeth were outward. And he said that he heard that when the car accident happened, he was going so fast that it actually flipped his teeth forward a little bit. And I'm not sure if that's true, but that's what he told me. And he'd always said that before she even told me that the big man had teeth that did that. So as soon as she said that about his teeth, my husband had a meltdown. He was, crying and sobbing and unconsolable, thinking that, his brother was there. And we weren't sure if his brother was there, why he was there, and why he started to get mean. So the big man was there and wanted her to tell her dad that he was there. And she did. But after a while, I don't know if it was because, my husband at the time wasn't paying attention to everything that was happening in the house, the noises, the tappings, the things moving, and he really wanted his attention. So then he started being mean to our daughter. Now she would come out and she would say, I'm not going back in there because the big man, he's pinching me. And we're like, what? He's pinching you? And she says, yeah, he does it like this. And she just, pinches my arm with a tiny pinch. But she says he's pinching her and she doesn't like it. She's tired of being pinched. So anyway, we didn't make her sleep in there anymore. I got freaked out and just put her in my room. She slept with me the rest of the time that I was pregnant. And then, because she wasn't sleeping in her room, all her toys would make noise. Her toys would just sit and it sounded like they were playing by themselves. She had one of those little merry-go-round things that you actually had to push down, and it made a noise that was pretty distinct. You knew it was that merry-go-round thing. It was like a top. You push the top down like a top, and then it had a plastic and it looked like horses in a merry-go-round, and it would just go round and round and round, and then it would play that song. And you had to physically push it down. These were older toys. These were toys of the 90s. They weren't digital electronic things that they have now. So that would happen, and it would happen all the time. And then she had this little rocking chair. If you walked by her room, we kept the door open, you'd always see that little rocking chair rocking. Little white rocking chair with pink cushions on it, and it was wooden. It would just rock and rock and rock, and then you would hear things clinking around, and then all of a sudden the radio in the bathroom would turn on, and it was plugged in. We kept it plugged in, but it would all of a sudden turn on, and it would make the weirdest noise. It would always be on static. It would never be on a station when it turned on, even though when we turned it on, we had it on a station. But when it turned itself on, it would never be on any particular station. So that thing would come on all the time. I remember one night in particular, the house got really, really noisy, and that radio flipped on. I went in there, turned it off. It flipped on again. I got really scared, and I said, you go turn it off. It's your turn. And so the husband went to turn it off, and as he's walking by the room, the little merry-go-round thing pushes down, and it makes that zoop, and starts spinning and doing its little child song. and he sees the rocking chair start rocking as he's going by. So he leaps back down the hall toward me, and we were out of there. We went outside for a while. It was so scary. And then the same thing happened right after I had the baby. After I had Ryan, we came home from the hospital. He must have been, I don't know, only a couple days old. And all hell broke loose in that house. Things were flying out at you. The toys got louder. It almost sounded like a war in there. We didn't even want my daughter to go in there. Things were rolling across the floor, hitting the walls. You'd walk by, the rocking chair would start rocking, and that thing would just keep spinning, that zoop, and then the spinning, and then all of a sudden, I find a clown. I find a clown toy in her room because it's laughing. Well, I don't like clowns, and I don't know where in the heck that clown toy came from, because I have never allowed clown toys in my house for my children because they scare me. Anyway, so I found that clown, and it was laying there laughing. I thought I was going to have a freaking heart attack. Right then and there, I thought I was done. And I didn't think it was going to let us leave, because why did it drag a clown in the house? Anyway, it was a little doll, but I threw it away, and we took off that day. It was in the night. We were so scared. We packed the kids up. We put them in the back seat. We get in the car, and we just start going down the road and around the corner. As soon as we turn around the corner, we're getting toward the gas station. All of a sudden, the back, it sounds like somebody's beating on the trunk, trying to get out of the trunk, like somebody's locked in the trunk. And I was so scared. I'd had so much of this night, I couldn't stand it. And my husband at the time was so scared. He pulled over at the gas station, and mind you, we are young. We are 19 years old at this point. And he pulls over at the gas station, and I looked at him and I said, "What's in the trunk?" And he said, "There's nothing in the trunk. It's empty." And so he says, "Get out of the car and get the kids out of the car, and you go into the store." So we got the kids out. I went into the gas station. I'm watching him through the window pop the trunk. So he goes and puts his keys in the trunk, and he unlocks it, and he jumps back so fast, thinking somebody's going to fly out of the trunk at him. Nothing. The trunk's totally empty. It was so freaky. We ended up driving to my mom's that night in silence, terrified out of our minds, with bumping inside the trunk like something's locked in that trunk, knowing there was nothing in that trunk. And I was scared because the kids were in the back seat. It was awful. We got to my mom's. I didn't want to talk about it. I took the kids in the house, said hardly anything, and stayed with my mom. I was so scared. I was scared out of my mind. After that night, though, nothing happened much anymore. I don't know was that his brother? Was he just trying to get our attention? Did he just want to see the baby? I don't know. I don't know. But after that calmed down a little bit more, and we moved from that apartment. So just strange things. But I think maybe pregnancy, being pregnant, being that the baby isn't quite born yet, so it doesn't mean that it's all the way in this world yet. Is it still in another world? Does it open up doors? Have you had any strange goings on during your pregnancy? Did it make your house more active? If you've got a story to share, you want me to share your story on this channel, email me. Email me and tell me your story. I will give you full credit, and I will tell your story just like you write it. Also, if you have any questions, if you're interested in anything else, if you're interested in hearing a story on something, let me know. Let me know what you want to hear. If you enjoyed tonight's story, please hit that like button and hit the subscribe button too while you're at it. And ring the little bell for notifications so that you know every Saturday. It'll remind you when my video pops up. Thanks for watching, all. I'll see you next time, and have a great night.